it's Mazzy. This is a Lakeside chat number 3. It's the music, stupid. You know, every time I come to the lake here, Lake Washington, about a mile from my house, I have this recollection of hanging out in Sausalito, right across the Golden Gate Bridge, Marin County. Sausalito has the best views looking towards the Golden Gate over to San Francisco. I always wish when people first visit San Francisco, they don't come from the airport and drive up 101 sort of through the industrial area. I wish everyone could drive into San Francisco from Marin County, coming through the Rainbow Tunnel, which is now called Robin Williams Tunnel, over Sausalito, curving down onto the Golden Gate and across to the Presidio into San Francisco. That is one of the most beautiful views on earth. It's just an amazing organic crossing into the urban area of views, and it's just a beautiful sight. Now, being here on this wonderful day at Lake Washington in spring just brings me back to that. So I picked 5 records to talk about sort of that Marin County Sausalito experience that I have recollections from. And first, I want to start off with an album that came out in 1967. It was from the second band signed by a major label, but to Kama Sutra Records, of the San Francisco psychedelic bands. Now, this band wasn't exactly a psychedelic band, and this was the first band of that movement, of that area, of that time, that actually had a top 40 hit, and that is Sopwith Camel, and that song was Hello, Hello. Now, the reason I bring this up, because I have a recollection, I'll get into that in a little bit, about my recollection, my connection to Sausalito and Sopwith Camel, but this is produced by Eric Jacobson, who also produced the Lemon Spoonful records. Later he would produce records, the first, I think, 5 or 6 records by Chris Isaak as well. And this has that kind of jug band, music hall feel, very much like the Lemon Spoonful, very much not a psychedelic standard band. But it was a great hit. It had that tinkly piano and that opening poetry about a Sopwith Camel, and this was their sole release at the time in 1967, and was a pretty big hit. At least the single was. Obviously, this wonderful kind of psychedelic group here. In the 70s, 73 or 74, they reunited for a one-off, another great album called The Return of the Miraculous Hump, Sopwith Camel, and that's kind of a light proggy art rock with a little jazz influence album, which is a wonderful album as well. But this is great, which has sort of folky jug band psychedelia mixed together. They were playing the ballroom scenes along with the Grateful Dead and the Big Brother and Jefferson Airplane, all the Quicksilver, all the bands playing. But in the 1980s, the late 1980s, my photographer Michelle Clement got an assignment from Rolling Stone magazine. There was a series they were doing at the time called Whatever Happened to, Where Are They Now? And Michelle was invited to spend a day with Sopwith Camel. They hadn't played together, they hadn't recorded together. There was a stationary ferry, old ferry, moored in the Sausalito in San Francisco Bay. It was called the Ark. There was events there, some people lived there, and the main singer of the band, the main protagonist, I think his name was Peter Kramer, was living on that for a while. It was a lot of people would come and go there. There were parties. I had been to a few over the years there, but we were able to spend a day. I was there with Michelle's crew, her hair and makeup artist, stylist, a couple assistants, and myself with this band, and they set up and they were just jamming, hanging around. I don't know if those pictures are around on the interwebs of Rolling Stone, Sopwith Camel. I need to look them up. I'll see if they're there. But that was a fun day. And it just brings that memory back to me of Sausalito and Sopwith Camel. An album I bought, this has the hype sticker, and it just brings me back to Sausalito and this beautiful view, even though this is Lake Washington and the bay is the bay that leads to the Pacific Ocean, is a total different thing. Next, another album that reminds me of Marin County. It's a 1973 album, Van Morrison's Hard Nose, The Highway. This is a period of time when Van Morrison was living in Fairfax. And there's a song on here called Snow in San Anselmo that opens up. It has the Oakland Choir, and it starts out just as this beautiful, ethereal, that kind of Irish folk jazz thing that Van Morrison does so well. And then about a minute and a half in, it hits up, and the bass playing and the arrangement and the time signature changes with this great piano, saxophone, bass heavy jazz interlude that goes on for a while with that chorus, just Snow in San Anselmo. Now that is a very unique situation, because I think it was in the 70s in Marin County and in San Francisco that we had a flurry of snow that maybe lasted a few hours. It's very rare to have snow on the low areas of the Bay Area at all. And so he wrote that song. He was living there at the time. And cutting a few years later to 1978, when I worked for ABC Records, one of my accounts was Caledonia Music, a small literally mom and pop record store. Can't remember if it was in San Anselmo or Fairfax. They're right next to each other, near San Rafael. In fact, there's a mention of San Rafael in that opening song here as well. But that record store was owned. Van Morrison bought it for his parents from Ireland, and I used to go visit them as one of my accounts. They had a huge poster of their son, Van Morrison. That was Caledonia Music, which was his publishing company, Caledonia Music. And so it was really kind of a fun time. That whole Sausalito, Marin County, Mill Valley, San Rafael thing, of course the Dead would move over there. Members of the Jefferson Airplane as well, New Riders of the Purple Sage, years later, the Huey Lewis's, but Van Morrison and a number of people would play there. There'd be Village Music in Mill Valley, the Sweetwater, what a great place. But Sausalito, I urge you, if you ever come to San Francisco, cross the Golden Gate Bridge, go right into Sausalito, the first exit as you exit the bridge on your way north. It used to be an artist colony. A lot of people lived on houseboats, including for a while, Bill Graham had a houseboat there, and I'll get to that later at the last album here. Then there's this second album by the New Riders of the Purple Sage, Panama Red. One of a handful of the first records recorded at the newly built record plant in Sausalito. Of course, they had, I think they had one in New York and one in Los Angeles. And Tom Donahue, KSAN Radio, urged the owners to build one in the Bay Area, another great recording studio. And it was built in this sort of semi-industrial area in Sausalito. Of course, it's become famous because of the album Rumors. Fleetwood Mac was recorded there with the cocaine room and the, not just the cocaine room, but I think the hot tub room and whatever it was. I went to a few shows there. They had live from the record plant on KSAN Radio, so I saw some sort of live broadcast from the record plant, and went there over the years several times. But this record with the opening track, Panama Red, written by Peter Rowan, who would be a member of C-Train for a while. He would record many kind of rootsy albums. One of the great yodelists in country, now what we call Americana music. His younger brothers, or Rowan brothers, had an album on Columbia, which really kind of bombed, but it was a major push. I remember seeing them open up once for Hot Tuna at Winterland. But I digress. This is a wonderful record. It's, again, that country rock thing. They were a staple. They would always open or parallel with the Grateful Dead on a lot of shows around the Bay Area. Many times when they would play at clubs and venues, Jerry Garcia would show up and play the pedal steel. And he's all over that first album. I don't remember if he's on this record. But you got Spencer Dryden, of course, who had been the drummer in the Jefferson Airplane. This is produced by Norbert Putnam, a Stax Memphis musician and producer who moved to Nashville and did a lot of great records. So this is a great feel. My first favorite album of New Riders of the Purple Sage is that first album with Jerry Garcia. It's more of a cosmic cowboy album, and it's an excellent record. I need to show that again sometime. Because of that recording by the New Riders at the record plant, the next album by the Grateful Dead, wake of the flood was recorded there as well in Sausalito. They were in Mill Valley, actually San Rafael, Marin County by this point, long after the 710 Ashbury housing. And after a bunch of live albums, they went out, left Warner Brothers, and put this album out, their first album under their own label, Grateful Dead Records. This was sort of a new direction for the Dead too. They had a little more jazzy effect. Gone was a really country influence from the 1970 and 71, but now they kind of mix some jazz in, longer suites by Bob Weir and Barlow, and this is a wonderful record, 1973. I still have in here the envelope. I was a Grateful Dead record, I guess Grateful Dead fan club member, so I'd get packages and stickers and newsletters in at the time. This was a different thing for them. They got finally distributed by United Artists eventually. After several albums, they get signed to Arista, but they really did several wonderful records on Grateful Dead Records. So this is recorded in Sausalito at the record plant as well. And lastly, I couldn't talk about Sausalito without talking about probably the premier song about the area, and that's Otis Reading's Dock of the Bay. This came out posthumously, was a big hit in 1967 after he died. The album came out in 1968. I guess that's when the single came out, maybe the end of 67 to 68. He was staying on Bill Graham's houseboat in Sausalito, in the bay there, the moored houseboat that a lot of artists and creatives were living in. He had played the Fillmore. He worked on this record, and this is one of those beautiful records with that beautiful whistling, opening up with that kind of seaside bird sound, and one of the great soul pop records of all time. And every time I hear this, it makes me homesick. I lived on Mount Tam for 1 year only. That was my excursion to Mill Valley. Spent a lot of times there, down to Sausalito. Had a girlfriend who lived in Sausalito, and we went out for about a year and a half. And so I spent a lot of time there over the years. Music venues, blues bars, pizzerias, restaurants, artist collectives. It was a great place. Of course, like everything else now, it's more gentrified. It's always been a tourist area, but way back it was a bohemian outpost of San Francisco, people trying to get away from the intensity of the urban San Francisco at the time. And a lot of those bands from the Haight in that area would move over to Sausalito, Mill Valley, San Rafael, Fairfax, and beyond. So thanks for watching. This is another Lakeside chat, reminding me of Sausalito and the beautiful San Francisco Bay. Thanks for watching. Mazzy loves you.